We'll call this meeting to order. Roll call, please, Fernando.
Councilmember Rivas.
Present.
Councilmember Green.
Present.
Councilmember Beltran.
Present.
Vice Mayor McCurvey.
Present.
Mayor Meister.
Present. Okay, I'll ask you all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by myself, and then please remain standing for an invocation, and please remove your head covers. Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Creator of all, we gather tonight with gratitude for the opportunity to serve this community. Grant this council the wisdom to deliberate with fairness, the courage to lead with integrity, and the compassion to understand the needs of all residents. As they face difficult decisions, guide them towards solutions that bring peace, unity, and prosperity to our city. Amen.
Amen.
Holy and gracious God, we thank you for your presence always and everywhere, and particularly tonight in this city council chamber. Be with our elected representatives, with city staff, and with all who have come here to participate in the governance of Porterville. We ask for courage, stability, and steadiness and peace for all who have come to speak, and receptive minds and hearts in all who are gathered to listen. We ask for your justice, your fairness, and your wisdom to be realized tonight in this room that bears on its wall the city's motto, "In God we trust." Protect each of us from becoming disoriented by our own petty needs or selfish goals, while emboldening us to speak and act with the clarity needed in difficult times. Protect our community from the judgment warranted when we turn our backs on those in need or on the land, water, and many peoples of this precious valley where you have brought us together in the nick of time. Forgive our city its sins and shortcomings. Where we fall short, help us to do better. And where we have sinned, help us to repent and to reconcile with those we have sinned against. We ask these things in the name of the one who can go where we cannot go and complete what we cannot complete. Thy will be done. Amen.
Please be seated. Okay, there's not a section for council comments, but I'm going to go ahead and open it up. Councilman Beltran, do you have any comments? Councilman Green? No. Councilman Rivas?
No, sir.
Vice Mayor McCurvey?
No comment.
I have no comments as well. Okay, oral communication. This is the opportunity to address the council on any matter of interest, whether on the agenda or not. Unless additional time is authorized by the council, all commentary shall be limited to 3 minutes. Please come forward at this time.
City clerk, this is a legal notice. A second copy is intended for the attorney. Hi, I'm Andrew Bozzelli, and I live in Porterville. I've come tonight to deliver a cure and correct letter instructing the city of Porterville to withdraw and nullify its improperly noticed decision to approve consolidation of the community development and engineering and project management departments. The matter was improperly placed on the consent calendar, limiting the attention it might have otherwise drawn. When the matter attracted attention anyway, the mayor announced a sudden and arbitrary reduction of public comment time from the usual 3 minutes per speaker to 2 minutes. When the mayor acknowledged that the comments would take a long time, that was your clue to remove the item from the calendar altogether and hold a public hearing on this important matter. A more experienced council dedicated to transparency would have done that. A better council would listen to the citizens of Porterville. In addition, it is apparent that the Porterville City Council improperly discussed the proposed consolidation in closed session and did not report openly the results of these closed discussions. Council, you can meet the letter and the spirit of California's Brown Act open meeting laws. Instead of writing fluffy, puffy columns for the local newspaper declaring transparency, you can actually be transparent by holding hearings on important restructuring matters instead of hiding them in closed sessions. When the people find out what you have shoveled off to the consent calendar, the mayor does not have to mumble darkly about deep state. The council can hold open hearings and listen to the voice of the people of Porterville. Work harder, do better. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else?
Good evening, Jean Vaugh, Fiatis Information Records on File. Mayor Meister, Vice Mayor McCurvey, and Mr. Rivas are making it clear that they want you to give them more control over how your taxes are spent, more control over their sorry, I had eye surgery, I'm having a little problem here. Cover their decisions on how the city should be governed and give you, the taxpayers, less control. How? Carefully read the proposed charter amendments. Often these three candidates say, shop Porterville, yet they eliminated 19 city employees and will replace them with current outside consultants. Outside consultants do not live here or shop here like these 19 families. Mayor Meister's advice to these 19 employees, show your worth. Our loyal, dedicated city lawyer is retiring. Did you, excuse me, I'm really having trouble seeing. Did you not shop locally? You hired someone from another city. I think it was Hanford. Is that shopping locally? You did not shop locally for the $3,970 politically controversial flags for Main Street. Two of you are flying to Washington, D.C. with flight, lodging, et cetera, costing about $5,000 to $6,000 of our taxpayer money. This is again spending our taxes elsewhere. Why should we blindly follow your advice? Vice Mayor McCurvey expressed in his long article in Saturday's Recorder his dislike for speakers during council meetings. For example, calling them loud and even, at times, unhinged cries for a library. Well, Mr. McCurvey, if you didn't pull $19 million out of the library fund to help finance the Washington Monument, the military-themed playground, new community rec, et cetera, maybe citizens might have more trust in your financial choices. Why do you not put down speakers at council meetings? One such comment you often use with scolding tone is, you probably belong to the Black Lives Matters. Are you a racist, Vice Mayor McCurvey? As a side note, why have you three councilmen not followed Measure H requirements that was voted for by the Porterville taxpayers? A percent of that money is supposed to go to the library fund. Not one penny has been put in the library fund for Measure H since January 1, 2025.
Please summarize, ma'am.
And we should trust your proposed charter amendments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anne Marie Wagstaff, address on record. Mr. Mayor, one of the things I have heard you say on multiple occasions is that you want to take our city in a new direction. Perhaps the majority will support you in leading our city in that new direction, but based on what I have seen and heard in this council chamber, I don't. But even the council's disappointing record on some of the things I care about did not prepare me for the action this council took at its last meeting, when it adopted a reorganization of city departments that will eliminate the jobs of 19 city staff based on a superficial two-page report that provided no evidence for conclusions reached, no overall cost-benefit analysis of such a draconian decision. And I do not refer here only to financial cost benefits. After all, the city report acknowledges there will be a net zero financial impact. I am not unilaterally opposed to reorganizations, nor am I unilaterally opposed to privatization. But each individual case requires a careful analysis and deliberation. And I certainly expect my elected leaders to do their due diligence in analyzing and communicating their reasons for such a comprehensive overhaul. In this case, an outside consultant might have been a better choice. I also expect an opportunity for adult education conversation with this council, the kind that is based on facts presented, not vague claims with no apparent support. That kind is not likely to, the kind that is not likely to take place when the council places such a radical, multifaceted recommendation on its consent calendar. That placement on the consent calendar communicates a deep lack of respect for the city, its employees, and its citizens. Like Vice Mayor McCurvey, I too would like the opportunity to have adult conversations about important city issues. I am willing to engage in dialogue. I know that I am not always right. I have even been known to change my mind. But I think it is past time for this council to recognize that mature adults don't always think alike, and that the best decisions are frequently made after open and fair-minded discussion, deliberation, collaboration, and compromise. At least that is the lesson I take from our nation's founding documents. The founders always knew that we would disagree with each other because they disagreed with each other. But I am grateful that they learned in the nick of time that sometimes it is necessary to put your own personal convictions aside in order to listen deeply and, when necessary, to collaborate and compromise, even with those with whom you disagree. That's the direction I would like to see Porterville go. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wagstaff.
Good evening, gentlemen. Taha Saleh, address on file. I could have swore that was a Dodgers hat on your head when I was watching you on YouTube. I guess that's a good sigh of relief. Thank you to Mr. Rivas. Thank you to Mr. McCurvey, and thank you to Mr. Beltran for being at the this weekend, for seeing you guys this weekend. It was a great event. Wouldn't be possible without the support of the city employees, the city council for allowing that. We know how much it costs, and we really appreciate you guys supporting that event. A lot of people came together. A lot of community members came together, and it got a lot of positive feedback. So I want to start with that. Thank you for being the major part of that. Tonight we're talking about charter reviews items. It was a pleasure to serve on that committee. I really appreciated the trust that you guys put in me. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot, got to meet a lot of good people, and I hope that a part of what you guys are discussing tonight is allowing us to continue to work, or maybe some other things that need to be cleaned up. So I hope you guys really consider that and allow that great bunch of people to continue to work together. And I really look forward to a discussion about some of these things. As an individual citizen in this town, a couple of them I don't quite understand, specifically the one with the consent of the council for department heads. That just, to me, as a business owner, when I have a manager, I try not to micromanage. It kind of gets messy, so I don't know if that, I don't know what the intention is. I would hope that we would give our manager all the power, because I really believe that he can do the job, and that we allow him to do his job. Other than that, I look forward to hearing a robust discussion, and I acknowledge you guys for being there. It's not easy to be on that lecture. It's not easy to have all this stuff vomited at you, but I do appreciate you guys being there. There is a bottom line to being a public service. And I just hope that whatever you hear, you take it as feedback and just try to be better. That's it. Thank you, and thank you for everybody in the room for being a part of this process we call democracy.
Thank you.
Brock Neely, address on record. So the idea of you having a city manager, he is supposed to be a professional that can handle the operations day-to-day of the city. If he is not a professional that can handle the day-to-day operations, then why don't you fire him and do everything yourself? You save us a whole lot of money. Save the benefit package, everything. The other thing is you got to remember, every one of these items you're going to put on the ballot is going to cost the taxpayers about $35,000, in addition to the about $100,000 to have everything consolidated on the ballot. So pare down what you're going to have on the ballot. Also, when you want to have the election and not selection, that's going to cost about $130,000 every time you do that. Taxpayers are not willing to pay for your pet projects.
Thank you, Mr. Neely. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone else. We'll close oral comments. And there's not a spot for council comments, but that is historically what we've been doing. So Councilman Beltran, do you have any comments? Councilman Green? Councilman Rivas?
Not at this point, but I do have one question, just real quick. Okay, I'm going to have the lawyer answer that. Are we appropriate or non-appropriate at this time?
It's okay, we should just keep it brief.
Okay. Then
Thank
I'll
you.
just reserve my question for later.
Vice Mayor McCurvey?
I don't have any comments.
Neither do I. Okay, moving on to scheduled matters. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This item is a follow-up to your March 3rd meeting where council reviewed the proposed charter amendments and tabled the item for further discussion. I would like to just take a brief moment to describe to those in the meeting and the council on how we got here. Going back to the October 7th, 2025 meeting, the council reviewed a comprehensive list of 41 potential charter amendments across a wide range of topics. Those topics included governance and administration, such as council vacancies, compensation, performance oversight. It also included fiscal authority and operations, such as procurement thresholds and public works delivery. Another topic was public rights and protections, such as voter ID, initiative processes, and emergency powers. And then the final topic was policy and regulatory matters, including code enforcement, zoning, and business regulations. So this was a comprehensive list, and through your direction, that list was intentionally narrowed down. At the January 20th, 2026 meeting, the council further refined that list and narrowed it down from 7 potential charter amendments to 4 additional review. Those 7 included voter identification for local elections. Second, allowing the city to self-perform road maintenance and other work. Third was increasing the procurement threshold. 4 was council authority to hire and terminate department directors. 5th was city council compensation. 6 was filling council vacancies by election rather than appointment. And the last one was potential changes to the city manager's residency requirements. From there, the council ultimately provided direction to further narrow that list from 7 to 4 items, which are the ones before you tonight. The Charter Review Committee met on February 5th, worked through draft language and policy options, and what you have before you tonight is a summary of that work in the city attorney's memo that was attached to the staff report. What's before you tonight is really the result of that process. At a high level, there are 4 main areas for council consideration. First, voter ID for local elections. Second, local control of public works and contracting. Third is council involvement in department head appointments and removals. And 4th is filling council vacancies by election rather than appointment. In addition to those 4 items, the committee also raised broader policy considerations, such as expanding into general charter cleanup and other housekeeping items. They also identified addressing the conflict between at-large and district-based elections. They also identified allowing flexibility through ordinance instead of charter language. Also providing additional time to refine, they asked for additional time to refine language and ballot sequencing, and then finally, they asked for direction regarding the status of an alternate member that I believe wasn't attending the meeting. One option for the council would be to consider each of the 4 proposed amendments individually. So you can provide clear direction on which items you'd like to see move forward and which you do not. Staff is here to support whatever direction the council decides. It is staff's recommendation. There was 4 recommendations. The first one is that the council review the Charter Review Committee recommendations and the city attorney memo. Second is identify which charter amendment should proceed for further development. Third, provide direction regarding potential additional charter housekeeping review, including consideration of amendments related to election structure. And then finally, provide direction regarding the status of the Charter Review Committee alternate member. I also want to recognize the Charter Review Committee. We have Chair Shelton and committee members here in attendance. I appreciate the work that they've done on this. And at this time, turn it over to you, Mayor.
Thank you, City Manager. Well, we could go ahead and start with voter ID for local elections. This is something I really led on. I think it's important to protect the most sacred thing we have as Americans, and that is elections. There are major concerns in the state of California. A great example is something that James O'Keefe was just working on down in LA County, where they highlighted individuals paying homeless folks to register in other people's names and sign petitions. And so there's a network of people that are corrupting our election systems. But another great example was Chad Bianco in Riverside just recently, where they found a discrepancy between the ballots that actually came in and what was counted by the machines. And I believe it was 47,000 ballots. So we have major concerns in the state of California. And this is one of the reasons why I push hard on this. My question is the juice worth the squeeze, as you could say? At the same time, we have the SAVE Act that's going through congressional level hearings. And then we have a state constitutional amendment that will be on the ballot for voter identification. There's a part of me that says we should push forward and put it on the ballot and let the people decide, and then it would be a charter amendment. Naturally, the state's going to sue us like they did Huntington Beach. And then we would be able to just not go forward with it, but we would show harm and be able to join Huntington Beach in a class action lawsuit against the state of California at the Supreme Court, which it will go to. Once again, I would state, is the juice worth the squeeze as I pass it off to my colleagues here? Is it worth spending the $30,000 to put it on the ballot, knowing that we have the SAVE Act and we have voter ID going on the ballot here in the state of California? I'll pass it off. Vice Mayor, do you have any comments?
Great opening. You know, we clearly have a lot of problems in this day and age with voter fraud throughout our country, and we're seeing it everywhere. And, you know, 1.3 million people already, signed up to put this on the ballot. So there's clearly a wide berth of concern in our state. And I feel confident with that passing. And I know that we could do some things here locally, but we have to be mindful of the budget. So what I would say, in addition to what the mayor said, is as we go through the next few election cycles, I believe these things will be secured. I believe that we are going to have some accountability, because if we don't, we're going to lose our country. And there's a lot of people that are seeing that same thing. And so I have faith in those people. I have faith in the people of our city that they'll support us doing the right thing. And I think the right thing in this case is probably to not push voter ID forward as one of the top that we push forward. You know, I've been informed at how much this costs, and despite the amount of time and effort that we've spent putting all of this together, and it's a lot of great work and a lot of professionals meeting together and putting together this information for us to deliberate, to understand, it's going to cost the city about $30,000 for each one of these that we put out there. And we have to be mindful now. When we started the charter committee, we had not yet discovered the problems that we saw with our budget. We had not discovered the $13 million liability and the $50 million PERS liability and the $85 million leverage against our assets. And we didn't see that clearly when we started this charter. So it makes us pause. It doesn't mean that we don't still do things for our city, but it means that we have to be careful with the money. And so now that that's becoming public information, despite, you know, folks not wanting to share that information, it's coming out, and we need to make sure that we're spending money on things that will give us the biggest bang for the buck. I have a question, and I'm going to ask, Julie, I might ask a question. I've been reading quite a bit on the internet about charter, and the way that I have interpreted some of what I've read is that there are a lot of things that we can do in our charter or address in our city that may not be in the charter via ordinance.
Right, so your charter is your constitution.
Right.
It's a city, it's like akin to the city's constitution. So the nice thing about it is it can be as short or as long and detailed, or as short and sort of set up just a framework. I mean, that really is up to, you know, the council and the people. That's the good news. For Porterville, this charter was done a long time ago, right? And because of that, you actually have one of the most detailed charters I've seen, longest and detailed. In recent years, it's much more common to find a 3-page charter that basically says, we're granting you the full ability to do what you want as a charter city, to, you know, adopt ordinances and regulations that, so long as they are consistent with the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, and are covering matters of holy local concern, have at it, right? And so they end up being a lot shorter. That is not what Porterville has. Porterville has, did theirs at a time where it's sort of, I think the inclination was to really have, you know, your voters really, it's very specific. So you have a lot more detail in your charter so one approach could be to revisit that framework entirely, right? So rather than doing what we've been doing and just go by amendment. So when you set it up that way, then you are, and that's actually something we did talk about at the committee level with some of these items, was maybe think about, one of the things you could do is take it out of the charter, have an amendment that removes it and gives you more, or, you know, strips down a provision to then give more authority via ordinance. So your ordinances can, you know, the rule about your ordinances is they just have to be consistent with your charter and the constitutions and the law, you know, and the, you know, any laws that are considered statewide concern. Those are the areas that you kind of have to, you know, the restrictions. But our charter itself is fairly restrictive as things go. So that is something that you can change, of course, but that has to be changed by charter. You can't adopt an ordinance that, in an effort to change a provision of the charter. Charter amendments can only be, or charter provisions can only be changed by charter amendment, just like the way ordinances have to be changed by ordinance and resolutions have to be changed by resolution.
Thank you for that long
You bet.
and good answer.
Sorry, I know it was long, but figured I'd get it.
No,
out.
it's important that we have that long answer because, you know, as a student of the Constitution, they wrote it in such a way so that the framework was something that could be, you know, dealt with over time and with the legislature. And so we have to think about the charter. I think they wrote into the charter some things that should have been left for the legislation to make that a simple response. But it makes me think about this in a different way. We have 41 possibles that we listed at $31,000 a piece.
That's $1 million, right? If we do 20 of them, it's $500,000 at best, right? And we're not going to get a break on bulk, 'cause
We tried.
So, you know, we really have to consider what Julie is saying here, because we don't want to go in there and spend a bunch of money on and not get everything that we want. It might be better to look at this through another lens. Now, I'm not saying that's what I'm motioning here right now. I just want to bring the conversation to the fore, because the audience needs to hear this. People need to hear this. We have a great charter, and there's a lot of great things in it, but it's very specific about some things that it shouldn't be. And, you know, the examples are, you know, 30, 50, 100 years old, where we can't make changes to things that are obvious to us today because of the way it's written. So I love the conversation, and I just wanted to tee that up, because as we go through, and maybe we select a couple of these tonight and push them forward nonetheless, and maybe we consider a new approach, because initially we didn't understand completely the expense, and we didn't understand completely where we are with our finances. So I think we might need to regroup on that as we go forward, you know, as a body going into next year, just at a high level. That's my opinion on that, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to weigh in on that to set the tone for the meeting, because I'm still like the things that we put together. I think we might be able to simplify some and push some through, but I think for the audience, everyone needs to understand that we got to, you know, balance those trade-offs and make sure the juice is worth the squeeze. And so that's my comments.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Julie, I just have a follow-up question. So in our city charter, our elections are at large, but the state has passed laws to where it's district. How did we bypass our charter in that situation?
Well, we should change it. And I think I mentioned that before. I do believe it should be changed. It potentially leaves you open to a challenge. That said, it is very difficult to get that changed unless, I mean, it'll depend on the language, but Visalia has tried a couple times. I don't even think they've been successful.
Haven't we tried as well?
Huh?
Haven't we tried as well?
No, we have not yet. We've been that was one of the things I had on my list for this time, because the last time we did it, we had already done our charter amendment changes. So that change to from at large to by district has happened, you know, in this last decade. So we have not changed it yet. So it was definitely on the housekeeping list. It would be my recommendation to. But this is a perfect example of something that you could leave. It does not have to be specified by charter. You could give yourself flexibility so that then you could change it by ordinance. And that might be more palatable to the voters, because I know in Visalia, when they've tried to change it from at large to by district, it's failed, I think, at least twice. So, and it's expensive, as we discussed,
Well,
right?
it's because the people want to
So-
vote for the
Right.
person they like the most.
Right.
It's just
They
natural.
don't, I mean, I
That's
get
true
it.
democracy.
Right, so I do think it has a little bit better of a chance, quite frankly, if you were not to just say by district, go from at-large by district. Plus, that would not be my recommendation, because one of the things that we agreed to, even when we did this, because we did it under threat of litigation, was that we would reserve the ability to go back to potentially going to and back to an at-large, should the laws indicate that we're able to do so, because it has been sort of a fluid area. So there's been issues with the results not matching up with the intent of the Voting Rights Act. And so I think that just because it's not necessarily having the result, in fact, in our smaller cities, it sometimes really becomes a real problem to get people elected at all. So it really has some problems, right, going by district, because it definitely shrinks your voting pool for each section, rather than having the whole city be able to vote on all of the candidates. So, at any rate, I'm all for flexibility.
Well, and it narrows down the
So-
amount of candidates that would actually run too, right? Because you're narrowed down to a district compared to at large.
Right, it makes it a lot harder to find people, if you need to have the people that are willing to do it.
Okay,
Right.
so thank you. Now, what I was looking for, did we pass some kind of policy? Was there an ordinance?
We have an ordinance. We have an ordinance in place that provides for at-large, and it is flexible. So
we did
we
make
did
an ordinance to do district.
knowing that there's a potential issue there.
Okay.
Yes.
There's,
So it's.
there's your
No,
answer, so
and I-
we're doing that.
This
So if
is a
you're wondering
great
why
point.
we have it, there's your, explanation.
So that was what you were wanting to get at,
I was
right?
kind of driving at that, but can I just add one follow-up? And that is, so you suggest that we might have a different approach And that might be that we go in and say, well, let's review the entire charter.
Right.
How would that look? What does that look like to Julia Liu?
To me, well, we did, I mean, typically that's what we've done every 10 years, is for, we've looked at it from that, with that eye, but I was always with whatever the direction of the council was. So if the direction is do this, I would literally look at each one and say, how do we change this to provide greater flexibility if you were going to do it? We even did it, quite frankly. The Charter Review Committee did this with regard to the Public Works one we're going to talk about. Because, you know, your guys' specific focus was street work, but I looked at the section and I'm like, well, why don't, you know, are you interested in giving yourself that ability for any public work? Because this is an area that the charter cities have a lot of flexibility if you give it to yourself. If you
Because
don't,
it's a matter of local concern.
right, it's a matter of local concern.
Yeah.
So taking I think it's 61, forgive me. but
We're
we've
gonna, no,
got-
you're right.
yeah.
We'll get there.
61's a like, if you look
Yeah.
at it, it is so micromanaged, right? It
I'm
is
with
so
you.
much micromanagement. And so my suggestion, and what I've done is if you read it now, it's like fullest authority, fullest authority, fullest authority, right? The only thing that's still in there is the bid threshold, because you specifically gave direction not to change that. So that's still there, which I'm sure the committee has some words about, some opinions about. But yeah, so there's ways to do, I would look at every single one of them and say, how do we make this easier? Voting is a good example. All you would have to do is say, we're going to allow you know, you just say, we can set it by ordinance. You just say you can set it by ordinance, and then you're done.
We just have to do it $30,000 at a time. Yeah, so,
That's-
yeah, thank you
that's
very much,
painful.
Julia. This is very, very helpful.
That is creative. Councilman Rivas, you have any comments on voter ID?
I'm confused.
I apologize, we kind of went all over the place there.
One area we
kinda
went
getting
this way, so
shotgun
I'll,
this thing.
I'll reserve my thoughts and
Okay, Councilman Green, any comments?
Yeah, just I think that at this point, the voter ID law thing, it's going to get fleshed out by the feds and the state people. So I think this probably ought to just kind of be taken off the shelf for now and let the feds and the state guys battle this out. That's my opinion on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Green. Councilman Beltran?
I find it sad that we even have to have this discussion, that's not
Yes, yeah.
required. I mean, to the mayor's comment, I mean, I think this is one of the things that should be protected. If you do not have identification, you're probably not participating in society. It's really hard. And I mean, the government pays for a lot of resources, and I don't know, for those who say they can't have one, that there's not like a mobile identification thing that can go out and help people. So this was very frustrating. My only question I have on it, I mean, some of the comments is that this could be shelved, and I agree for the most part that the cost effect of this. But let's say, for whatever reason, if this is a motion, this passed, and the voters vote for it, and the state kind of comes at us, we could also suspend it, where there's
Yes.
actually no action, so it's on their books, but
It's mute.
it's mute, so.
You could, and I actually added qualifying language that isn't in Huntington Beaches, right? So maybe we don't even get sued.
That's what I was
Maybe
thinking
you
is.
do, maybe you don't. It at least says in there that it can't become active if it's inconsistent with current.
I love where Councilman Beltran's going. He's saying, take the high ground. I appreciate it, Mr. Beltran.
Yeah, and we'll see how the rest of them flush out as we continue, but that one, I'm not all on shelving it necessarily yet, given that we can suspend it and we can not worry
And
about
then
litigation.
you show harm, right, if the
Right.
state does
It's
come for you.
suspended, exactly. So we can go on to the next one.
Okay. Thank you for that input. Okay, moving on to city self,
let me.
yes, Councilman
I-
Rivas.
In regards to the ID cards, ID voters, I understand what my constituents are saying, but I have a quick question. Have we ever had any problems in Tulare County with voter ID that anybody's aware of?
I'm not aware of any, but that doesn't mean that they're, I mean, I don't know.
I mean legally,
Uh,
has anybody ever
I don't
come
think
out?
there's
No,
been
the-
a case of that.
If I might comment,
Sure.
there was a study
There was a study?
done, and
Yeah.
they didn't find any issues
Okay.
of significance in our county,
All
and
right.
we're actually one of the better counties in California.
So so with that, I think we could potentially see where the feds and the state go, but, you know, I'm also inclined to see where this is going to go. So with that, I just think that if there's no issues locally, I think we can wait and see where the major teeth is. But if we do pass it, if it does get passed, I think we can ensure that we don't get in any frivolous lawsuits that they can come after us. And maybe we can, you know, at least say, like you just answered my question, that there is language in there that we can, okay, we'll minimize and we'll postpone.
Well, and the good news is this is an area that we have not micromanaged in the charter, so if the laws change, if the state law changes, or the feds, either one of them passes, there's nothing in your current charter that would prohibit you from applying, you'd be following the law anyways. So
Exactly.
you don't need the amendment if those were to
I
pass.
see. All right, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Rivas. Moving on to self-performance for repair and maintenance work. Something else that I really have championed. We need this in Porterville. We're behind on our roads, a lot of public infrastructure. I've coined the term public safety resurfacing. It's something that we definitely need. I appreciate all the work from the charter committee and Julia and all the members that participated. I want less language. I think all you need is section C. The city shall have the power to perform any work of improvement, replacement, repair, or maintenance by use of its own forces and is not required to contract for such work, including the construction of such work. This city may also contract with other public agencies for such work. Very simple. And Julia, you already made the point of our charter is very heavily regulated with verbiage, and so this kind of just opens the door, and we don't have to state that we're not going to do this or we're not going to do that. We're just stating this is what we're going to do.
So let me just get the clarification then. So we would replace what's currently in 61 with just C. I think if we do that, you're probably right. I don't think, we would want to make sure we're not keeping all the rest, because there is some stuff in there that gets into the
Needs to be in
management
there.
that we don't need.
Doesn't need to be.
Doesn't need to.
Yeah. So I'll open it up. I started with Vice Mayor. I'm going to start with Councilman Beltran this time. Councilman Beltran, you have any comments?
So to your point on that one, as I was reading section 61, it does get very detailed. And I highlighted some concerns with that. And if it was going to be to the mayor's kind of proposal C, one thing I highlighted was the 4/5 vote. It's like the fourth or fifth paragraph down. By 4/5 votes by its members, determining and declare that the public interest and necessary.
What page are you on, Councilman?
Page 3.
Oh.
The third paragraph from the bottom. Basically determining the public interest and necessity demands that immediate expenditures for public monies to safeguard life, health, and/or property. It kind of goes on. I highlight it because, I mean, you could almost make something that you wanted to be a public interest. And so when you kind of remove that stuff, it'd be opened up even larger.
It would get, so again.
That's an
I think-
emergency.
So if we are going with the strategy of paring this down and just removing that language.
Right.
You can always adopt by ordinance what you want that to
Specify
be.
it.
And that's what
Okay.
I would recommend is, you aren't just because you're getting rid of it here, doesn't necessarily mean you aren't putting it back into your regulations. Because I think that would be good. I think there are things in here you might very well want to do,
Right.
but I do agree, but they don't necessarily have to be in your charter.
Okay. The other part to that is, let me find my notes here, was so Measure I has to do a lot with roads, but it also has to do with public safety. Right now, a majority of Measure I is being used for roads, which is most of the intention of that. But part of my hesitation or looking on this without boundaries, without safeguards, is that depending on the council or depending on the revenue, that it's not structured to how much is going to be used, because then it starts using, you know, if we make promises that we can't keep, we're going to be using more towards roads than was initially intended, because
So Measure I is a general tax measure, which means we can't have restrictions on the purpose without getting
yeah.
ourselves in trouble and having somebody accuse us of having actually done a special tax instead of a general tax.
Exactly.
well, and what.
Thank
the
you for
reason-
battling the misinformation.
Well, my thing is that it becomes unbalanced budget, because traditionally you have X amount of dollars that go towards all the different needs. When one thing is being highlighted for a few years, it starts really throwing off that rhythm of the other needs. When one particular, it could be public safety, and then roads are impacted. So I think for me, it was like, I really like this push, but with a cap, that this isn't going on for 50 years. This is like a push to catch up for, let's say, 3 or 4 years, and then it slowly gets curtailed back, because if the needs for public safety start to go up, then it's going to eat more from the general funds, and that eats from other departments of, you know. So there's just cause and effect, and that's what I wanted to highlight, mostly for the community to understand. One of the big things that popped out to me was the labor contract codes. The way it's written now is where we spend 20%. My understanding is we could make up kind of any number we want to say, we're going to spend $50 million on roads, because then that 20%, we could justify spending that 20%, even if we never actually intend to do that $50 million. On paper, it's a way to get through. And I just, again, it's a safeguard to make sure that we're spending the allotted money versus manipulating the language to then overspend when it's going to affect other services in the community. This is mostly for the public. This is not necessarily for the council or for the city attorney. I'm trying to educate the public, and there's ramifications with some of this stuff. I know people like it. I like it. Like I said, I think it's a good push for a short term. I think having this open-ended can really cause some issues.
So you're talking specifically just about how much focus on street maintenance specifically?
Yeah,
Okay.
specific,
So not
and I know
necessarily
there's
the charter.
more in this one, specific to like maybe like the consent items where you're expanding, you know, I think it's like $40,000 is what it potentially
Councilman,
should
just
be.
to get a little clarity, but the council sets the budget annually. So we have that opportunity to flex back and forth at that moment.
Absolutely
We don't want
right.
to add more to the charter. It's like the pay for the council, you know, $20 a meeting, $25 a meeting, set in 71. It's not going to change, right? Because you put that to the ballot, people have a lack of trust in government
Well,
when it comes to money.
again,
I think that we don't want to add a lot of language in on this. We set that budget annually, and the city manager works with all the directors to bring that, so that we're not going to be robbing from one department or another.
I know that, but unfortunately, it's been happening.
Well,
And so whether you want to blame other councils, I believe this council is doing it too. So I'm trying to safeguard the fund from ourselves, is kind of what I'm trying to say. So as much as I like this, we could continue doing this without changing the city charter, because then eventually we can pull ourselves back. When we change it, I don't like that there's not those safeguards. So that's just my comments. You guys can.
Thank you,
yeah,
sir. Councilman Green?
Yeah. Boy, this seems like we're getting way off out in the weeds here pretty quickly.
That's why we had a special meeting.
Well, I'm probably special ed, so.
No, that's
Yeah,
on
all
my
this
right.
stuff, yeah, I think, you know, there's an awful lot of wordage here, and all this other stuff, you guys hash that out. I think probably all this is gonna have to go back to council, like Mayor's talking about. I think he's saying, I'm a simple guy too, and I think this is what you're saying. Let's make it simple. But kind of in this item, kind of my biggest thing was the $5,000 procurement threshold, because I think, you know, it's just over the years, I mean, my gosh, trying to put a set of tires on one of the garbage trucks is probably 3-4 grand, Russ, did you guess?
Yeah. oh,
5
yeah,
grand,
more.
I said probably over 5,000, I think I mentioned that, you know, so it's like, okay, this is counterproductive, in my
That's-
opinion.
The
I mean,
committee
I've
had
been
very
That's
strong
why I don't
feelings
want to
about
put that
too.
language in there at all. I just want to go with section C, page 4.
So, okay, that was actually my question. So you were thinking, actually, even remove the bid threshold completely out of there?
Take it out. Yes.
Okay.
All right. Councilman Rivas?
Yes, sir. Just for the public to know that, you know, there was a brief statement that I don't believe this council is wasting money. I think we are the tightest penny pinching council that you've seen in a long time, because I'm going to give you some numbers. In the last 15 years, 20 years, we had $50 million surplus. And from there, we eliminated that into an $85 million bond issue. And then with the PERS, another 20, then the health and the ARPA, it came out to about, I put all these numbers together, it came out to about $119 million. If we were to pay that back, depending on how we're paying it back, each baby born as of today would have to be in debt by almost $1,900. That's what these previous city managers and directors have done over these years. And we, this council, stopped that. We asked for 2 audits. We were fought day and night for that. It took them 5 months to get what we needed. But this is the numbers that I came out. You can do your math yourself. So just so I can reiterate, each baby born as of today is already in debt by $1,900, almost $1,900. And depending what this city is paying for these in debts, it will take up to 49 years or 25 years or 30 years. That's a generation. So you can thank the previous city managers and the directors in finance or whoever they were for doing this under your nose. I mean, you can come out and tell us that we're doing everything wrong and bad, but those are the numbers, and I just gave them to you. But in regards to that, I just wanted to throw that out there because I don't think we are the ones that are shifting funds from one place to a department to other. I think we have an excellent city manager that's doing the best that he can with what he was left with. So with that, I turn that over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman, thank you, sir. Vice Mayor McCurvey, I know you've been wanting to get a bite at this apple.
Well, no, this is a great conversation. So if you go out and you talk to the people in this city and you ask them, would you rather have a community center or good roads? Ask them a question. Because we took $8.5 million out of
Please be
Measure
quiet in
I.
the chambers. Show some respect.
We took I'm gonna say it again. We took $8.5 million out of Measure I for that project, the community center that everybody loves. $8.5 million. And you know what? We threw another $4.5 million for good measure out of the ARPA. That's $13 million. And I keep hearing everybody harping about money that's spent. If we didn't take the money out of Measure I, that wouldn't be getting built right now. And that was the money that was set aside for other things, like roads. So it's just a trade-off question. What do the people really want? And I know the community, we voted to push it through because it's something the community needs, but it was a trade-off, right? And to sit here and make comments from this dais that we're spending way too much money on roads and we're way overdoing it after we just spent $13 million on a community center, what we're spending on the roads pales in comparison to that. And that all could have came out of Measure I. Let's just be real. So when we talk about Measure I, these are talking points and political talking points out there, but know your numbers. AJ's right. This has been going on a long time. Now, let's get back to the topic.
Thank you, sir.
The topic is Constitution. I love this idea, Mayor. It says right in here in Section C, perform any work.
You want to make it that simple.
That sounds like, well, that's in the section, but this is a constitutional language, right? Perform any work. The rest is implied. And we can do the rest by ordinance. And it doesn't need to be written in there so it costs you $30,000 to put a limit on it, and then later you want to change the limit, it costs you $30,000 to change the limit in 6 months. Not a good idea.
I'd just like to state too, you know, when we're taking state grants, federal grants, we're tied to paying prevailing wage union contract. With Measure H, Measure I, and General Fund, we have more flexibility on how we spend those dollars. And so this here gives our city crews the tools they need to go to work and fix our roads. We're 20 years behind on our roads. And so this is the cheapest approach to fix those roads. We get about 1 lane mile for $100,000. Through this process, we could keep doing what we're doing and get Porterville in good shape where we want to be. I think we've kind of covered what we're thinking. Now, what I'd like
Is yours a motion, Mayor?
This is one that we have to get on the ballot. This is worth the $30,000. So I will make a motion for the self-performed street maintenance. That's not what we
Here, I can probably.
we
I
could
think I know
change
what
the
you're-
language, right? But
I'm going to propose what I think you're doing, and you can tell me if it's it, and you can say.
Yes,
it's your
ma'am.
motion. So you're approving the ballot measure language, it sounds like, because it's exactly what, on par with that section. So that would be, should the charter be amended to allow for self-performance for city maintenance, repair, and public improvement work?
Yes.
With section 61 being amended to simply say, local control of public work and purchasing, the city shall have the power to perform any work of improvement, replacement, repair, or maintenance by use of its own forces, and is not required to contract for such work, including the construction of such work. The city may also contract with other public agencies for such work, period.
that is my motion.
I would second that motion.
Okay. Is there any other comments?
I had one brief question for Director Alvarez, if you're able to. When's the last time we did a PCI index?
I believe it's been 5 years since we did the PCI. It's due, but we're actually reviewing the streets right now, and we're working on the budget for next year.
I think that would have been really good to have an updated version of that as soon as possible, because I think that would answer a lot of my questions as far as where we're at with that. So, thank you.
Okay. Councilman Rivas?
Yes, sir, I have one question. Can you, for the audience, can you explain what PCI means to the public?
It is, the PCI is, it's an agency that comes out and looks at the roads and provides an index of whether a street is in good condition, poor condition, or it's a dilapidated road. So it's a measure. Each road is given a numbered system, with the lowest number being the worst, and the higher numbers road that.
So with that review, I'm pretty sure Porterville will pass and get an F for all its roads that's going on around here.
Well,
Not
there's
that
some roads
bad,
that
but
we
yeah.
have improved that are.
Well,
would be
since
high.
they haven't
Yeah.
been
We
approved.
fixed more.
I
Yeah, we
understand.
have.
I just wanted the audience to know what PCI meant,
Yeah.
that's all. I appreciate that, thank you.
That's an interesting point. You know, something I don't like about the PCI is that it highlights certain like neighborhood roads where I would rather see city crews focusing on corridor roads, the ones that are taking the most impact and are the most devastated, and that the people are traveling along the most.
Heavy road,
Yeah, we look at the PCI. We also review, like you were saying, the main roads. We're gonna give a little bit more.
That's
credit
what I
to.
like to hear as
Yeah.
the mayor. I appreciate that.
And that's the right approach. What I was told before I ran for office was the PCI is wholly inadequate, because the men that know what needs to get done, we're not allowed to do what needs to get done for a long time. That's why I ran for office.
that's correct.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Let's call for the vote. Passes 4-1. Okay, moving on. find my place here. Elections, not selections.
This one's the department head one. Did you want to talk about that one, or?
City council authority. Department heads, page 4. Okay, so city council authority over department heads. You know, once again, just looking at the dollar, what we're wanting to spend, is the juice worth the squeeze, or is this something that we could do through policy, through our city manager? I think there's some other angles, just knowing that this, each measure we put on is $30,000. I hate to concede on any of these, but I think that this is something that we could do in-house, and I would just leave it at that. So, Vice Mayor McCurvey, do you have any comments?
Well, I want to stick with the line of Constitution. What you're going to find when the public looks at this, if you really just zoom out a little bit, all of these are really about checks and balances. It's really, we got together and talked about this and said, let's try to move in this direction where we don't have a city manager that has the ultimate
Yes.
most power in our city and no other checks and balances against a city manager that may go rogue or someone who's not, doing what he needs to be doing. Now, the council always has the ability to hire the city manager. But, that for the last 15 years was going in one direction. So what we found is that we think there's a lot of power, so we want to find a check in the balance. So what's behind this, and there's some great language in here, you guys did a great job, trying to parse this out and trying to make that balance. But I think what comes out of this is you could be too heavy-handed the other way with the council. So, I'm kind of, pulling back a little bit now and thinking that the better approach, because of not just the expense to change the charter and all the wording and all the problematic wording that might end up in there, is it might be better to make a recommendation that the city manager make some individual contracts with the directors to give us some sort of performance measurement that we can all look at together and collaborate on. That would be my motion, Mayor.
Okay, I don't think we need to make well, there's a motion on the table, but I think just to clarify is that you don't support putting this on the ballot currently is what your motion would be. Councilman Rivas, and before I pass it off to you, Councilman Rivas, exactly right, Vice Mayor. The whole point of bringing this on is to declaw the city manager, and return power to the people, the electeds, and also the ability for the electeds to have accountability on directors. In my experience, I felt like some directors, not all, but some had a lack of respect towards electeds, and it was more towards the city manager because he is the boss and the most powerful man in town. And so we don't want that. We want the power to be within the people's hands. And so that's why we push for this. But like I said, and you stated a great angle to make change without having to make it a charter amendment and costing the taxpayer $30,000. So Councilman Rivas, go ahead, sir.
After reviewing this, we've seen a lot of checks and not so much balances in the previous era. But now that, now that I'm reading it more and constantly looking at it and just beating my head over it, I don't want to give and take away the power of the city manager. And I don't want whoever is elected after the fact have a heavy-handed. And just because you don't like a certain individual and try to persuade or allude to you, let's get together and get rid of this person. No, I think it should just remain where it's at, and I think we can remedy this by making some type of maybe ordinances or recommendations or even the possible policy where the city manager can just give us some hindsight individually, so we won't violate any Browns Act and so on and so forth, but at least get to know who's not doing what they're supposed to. That way we can be appraised of it. So that's just an opinion of mine, but I think we should leave it the way it is. But if there's any type of policy or recommendation that we can come up with, I think we should look into that. But I think I've always been used to a person that, where I come from, the captain was the man, and the lieutenant, and everybody had their boundaries. And I think by pushing this a little forward into the hands of the public, I think we might be spending money that we can do it in-house. So with that, I'm going to refrain from pushing it a little bit more, but that's where I'm standing. But I like the vice mayor's motion, and if after the other two colleagues make their own assessments, then I will come back and possibly get a second shot at this. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Rivas. Councilman Green, do you have any comments?
Yeah, yeah, I think, you know, the city manager is beholding to the council, okay? And I think, and I'm not gonna get long-winded about this, because this has been rolling around in my head for quite a while, and it rolls around pretty good because it's kind of empty up there sometimes, but I mean, effectively, if this were to go through, you would be neutering the city manager, and that's basically, that's just where it'd end up. And I don't think you need to weaken his position. I mean, he'll just be a paper tiger. And I agree with Ed. I think this should be just not go forward with it.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman Green. Councilman Beltran.
I'm trying to calculate right now. I think in the last year, I think we have 5 interim or new directors out of 9, possibly 6 coming up, and consolidation. So personally, I don't think that this really is going to do any good if we were to try and put this on the ballot, just for the simple fact that it's already basically being done. There, in our city council handbook, it distinctly tells us, you know, our role as a legislature and the city manager's role for running the day-to-day operations of the city. That's getting muddled. And so as much as I can appreciate we wanting to give authority to the city manager to have that, just again, in just the last year, you've heard comments from this dais about how residents are spoken to. You've seen recently in a meeting, in a committee meeting, how business owners are spoken to. So I can't imagine if city council has that type of reaction towards residents, towards business owners. Imagine working for them, or they have an influence on if you stay here or not. It's going to be really interesting to see, as we have all these vacancies, a lot of interim positions, who's going to want to apply for the city of Porterville, knowing what you're walking into. These are people that are highly educated with degrees and experience in being left to make sure they do the best job for the city, not for council, for the city. That is their obligation. So I'm glad that this is going to be shelved, but it doesn't mean it's still not going to happen behind the scenes.
Thank you, Councilman Beltran. Okay, Vice Mayor McCurvey, you have a motion on the table. Just for clarity, is your motion to go forward with, you're wanting to have directors,
Well,
I forget how you worded it.
So I just feel like it's too far with trying to have the actual, we want to be able to vote for cause, but we want to make sure that we don't overstep. And so I'm not for moving this forward, but I would recommend that the city manager have some agreement, like his own agreement, with his own directors. Just so there's a performance agreement. So it's not just a, you know, I like you or I don't like you. I think there's a performance level there that we could get to that would give us that check and that balance without being heavy-handed and leaving that power with the city manager and that performance between him and his directors.
So is your, just to clarify, so your recommendation or your motion would be to recommend that the city manager come up with contracts with, for the directors?
With the directors, yeah.
Between the
I
administration
think that
and the
would be a good
directors.
balance, because now we're keeping it in-house. It's not in the charter. It achieves most of what we were trying to do with the balance, and it gives us a semblance of performance. That's exactly right, Julia. Thank you for helping me to simplify that.
Can I ask for an amendment on that, and just putting this to you, is that something I was trying to achieve is hiring and firing. It should go through the council. If the city manager is deciding to, they do the interviews, right? The evaluations, that's what you're saying. But then when they make a decision to hire someone, it's the council's vote to hire that individual or fire.
That's a charter
I'm not
change.
for that.
That would be a charter change.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, you have a motion on the table?
Yes.
Councilman Rivas, are you seconding it?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. We'll call for the vote. Now, this isn't a charter change. This is something that would come forward on a schedule.
It's really a
matter.
recommendation to the city manager to do it.
Yeah.
Is how it was worded, I think, from
Yes.
the vice mayor.
Thank you for that, Julia.
Okay, passes 5-0. All right, with that, we'll move on to elections, not selections. A lot of language in here, and Mr. Neely brought up a point. What it costs to do a special election is around $100,000, and could be more. My big concern with this and what we've seen in the past, and this defangs this council as well today. What ends up happening is if someone resigns, naturally the majority picks their best friend. And you can have people go get petitions and signatures and come in here and they're not going to listen. They're going to pick the person that agrees with them most because it makes them more powerful behind closed doors. So what I want and why we worded elections, not selections, we need to come up with a way where we can fill these seats by the people. We want to return the power to the people. We don't want the council to decide who a representative is for a district. With Councilman Wyrox, this is the one that I got to live through and see. He ended up doing 2.5 years on the council, almost 3 years. So he got appointed just before an election, and he got to serve for 2.5 years. And what I'd like to see, I'm just using Councilman Wyrock's situation just because it's something I witnessed, and that election should have went on a ballot. And then so that we don't end up having multiple people in one session, what ends up happening, what I think needs to happen is after that 2 years, because that's when that district would come up for election again, and needs to go on the ballot again. And so that is a way to put the power in the people's hands, but still be cheap and not a $120,000 election for a special election. But it is special in a way so that we're still doing it every 2 years.
Right, so the reason why it worked out that way with Wyrock's position was that by the time he was appointed, it was too late to get it on the ballot for the upcoming election, because we are limited to consolidate.
I understand that.
Yeah, and
And
so that, you're right, you're
Reyes,
exactly right. This was the situation where
he
it
was out for
maximized.
5-6 months.
Right.
And they waited until the final deadline to say he was resigning, so then they had the
Right.
ability to appoint who they wanted. And they stole the power from the people.
Right, so that's, so what you can do, and that's, that the Charter Review Committee did specifically look at then how do we deal with that situation. So, and there was, there are several different options actually, and then even some recommendations. I know that Alex had his own recommendation on that because, so there's a couple different things. You got, again, our charter uniquely specific in a lot of ways, and this is one of them. We don't have any provision for a special election. It's all appointment. And that was actually changed one of the last times, might have been the 10 years ago. It was actually amended. That was a council decision to do that at the time. So, so you can do a lot of things. You have a lot of flexibility here. You could go, as Mr. Crace was suggesting, you could just simply go with what the special districts do, which is you give yourself both options. Now, that's fine, but it does not then limit your ability to make appointments. So you could still theoretically have the situation, Mayor, that you just talked about. So what the Charter Review Committee did with this section, rather than trying to read it out, is just, they basically said, look, we're going to provide for special elections for this. Now, there's a concern with the cost of this, because, you know, ideally what you would like to do is just try to get it on cycle for every, you know, basically have it so that your election is, whichever the next election coming up is that you make sure that it's consolidated with that election. So you could do that, but then what the trade-off then is that you could have a very long time, because in the situation of Wyrock, for example, his ears are going to be burning with the amount of times we're mentioning him tonight. But with his particular seat and his circumstance, since you couldn't get somebody on, you would have been waiting a full 2 years to appoint anybody if you were going to wait to consolidate it with the election, right?
Right.
So do you really want to have 4 on your seat, you know, on your council
No,
in
you
the
have
meantime?
to, you have to select.
You want to fill it. So there's a number of things you can do, and I know the committee kind of went back and forth on this issue, is you could just insist on calling a special election, and that's what they ultimately landed on, so they gave you basically a range. If you can consolidate it, obviously we do that, but if you're not able to, you know, if one's way off, like there would have been in the situation with Wyrock, you would then have to schedule a special election. That will cost you the money. I think that, and I know that Fernando provided some numbers here, but these are just numbers for consolidating with the election, right? That's not for holding a special election, is it? Because that would be actually pretty cheap if it's for holding a special election.
Correct.
Yeah. So just to even consolidate, it's going to cost you for each district almost either, you know, around $10,000 per seat. So I can only imagine for a full-fledged election, I'm sure it's quite expensive, unless we do it ourselves, in which case we're incurring the cost. but
Fernando, didn't you get some numbers?
Yes, so after speaking with the elections office, they did note that a special election would cost about $100,000.
Okay.
Obviously, that is more on the higher end, but that's kind of what they perceived it to be. But yeah, no, that's.
Yeah, because it would be to that one district.
Yeah, because
Depending on how many vacancies we had.
Correct, and then there is also more cost probably too, because special elections sometimes are a lot less, how would I say, popular. So the voter turnout isn't always the same, which can cost, because if less people vote, then there is an additional cost to that as well.
Yeah. And it's an interesting cycle, because we had Daniel Penaloza, who ended up being a pedophile, right, that went to an appointment. And then we had Monte Reyes that resigned and then went to an appointment. So it just, it's interesting. I want to return the power to the people and give the ability I like the idea of just this section, shall the charter, and this is page 6, shall the charter be amended to require council vacancies be filled by special elections and allow the council appointment to fill the seat until that special election. You know, $100,000 is a lot of money. I understand it. But it costs a whole lot more to have bad leaders. So I just would leave that statement. Who did I start? I started, Councilman Beltran, go ahead, sir. I believe I started with you last there. So go ahead, Councilman Beltran.
I think I spoke to this when we were talking about it, and the way I see it, $100,000 is a lot, but I'd like to think that it would be kind of rare, hopefully,
Yeah,
that even if it's every 4 years or so, if we use, not that it's for that, but discretionary funds from the council or something to that effect, because we generally don't use a lot of that. My proposal was that if there's, let's say, 3/4 of the term, let's say there's only 1 year left.
Yeah.
I think a selection might be okay because it's just short term. But if it's anything over that, over 365 days essentially, I think an election would be nice. I mean, I know it's a big cost, but to your point, I do like that the voters have a say for somebody who represents them for a longer period of time. So that would be, I didn't kind of see that proposal in here, but I don't like necessarily just the 50%. I think that's what I stated the first time. But I think 2 years is a long time still, or you know, up to a year. I mean, things can still happen. They're significant, but it's a shorter duration.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with an appointment in that shorter duration. So that would be kind of more of my direction of 3 years or would go to a special election.
Thank you for that input, Councilman Beltran. Councilman Green, do you have any comments?
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking, so, okay, so, you know, you're talking about a year, 365 or 66 days if you throw in leap year, you know? What if it's 367 days? Okay, so do you say, okay, well, we have to have a general election now because it's 1 day over the full year. So it gets kind of convoluted, and I think it just needs to be made simple, because I'm a simple guy, and I think for the voters, if this goes on the ballot, it has to be as simple as we can get it and fleshed out to, and I think the appointing a replacement, you know, you can say, okay, well, I was duped, I didn't get, because of the good old boy network on the city council, I didn't get chosen. Well, that's also, you know, the shoe goes on the other foot too. It's like, if you've got the council, like when Mr. Wyrock was appointed, okay, the next time, it may not be Mr. Wyrock, it may be his counterpart. So it's a difficult one. I support it, but I think it just needs to be simplified as much as we possibly can.
It's a great point, Councilman Green, and that's why, and Councilman Beltran kind of stated this and myself, we want to remove that favoritism away from the council and let the people decide who are in these
And
seats.
I'm good with that, but it has to go, it'll go both ways.
Yeah.
So everybody, you know, nobody has an advantage that way, correct? Is what you're saying?
Yeah, well, and I think what, to credit Councilman Beltran, what he's saying, that year marker might be a good marker. Just throwing that out there. It makes sense.
It does. I agree with that.
Councilman Rivas?
No, after reviewing it, I was looking at what the first paragraph, shall the chapter be amended to require council vacancies to be filled by a special election and allow the council appointment to be fill the seat until the special election. To me, that's kind of vague, and I think Mr. Beltran pretty much cleared it up for me on that aspect. I think there need to be some type of language or maybe we can push it back to, or maybe we can add it tonight, to where there needs to be a boundary to where when we can and when we can't have a special election, like a year less. Yeah, I think the council should appoint, because he makes perfect sense on that, and if it's longer than that, then a special election should be forthcoming. That's my take on that, so, because I was kind of like, well, it's just too vague for me on that one.
Yeah.
It's not clear, and I think the citizens of Porterville will interpret it the way they want to interpret it, but if we put some type of specifics like Mr. Beltran and Mr. Green said, I think we can move forward with that.
Yeah.
So do you guys want me to summarize what because the actual amendment is definitely more detailed than the
Oh, yeah,
ballot measure?
yeah. I'm trying to narrow it
It's
down.
messy, and I know
I
this
don't
is-
mind the year marker, and then I'm just saying, shall the charter be amended to require council vacancies
Right.
be filled by special elections and allow the council appointment to be filled the seat until that special election? So,
Right, because the proposed amendment right now is definitely on a shorter time frame. It basically said that the way the amendment would read, as proposed by the Charter Committee, would be that the council would call a special election within 30 days of the vacancy, that they would then hold the special election no less than 90, but no more than 180 days after it's called, and then that once elected, then you'd have to decide how long they hold it till. Right now, it reads through the remainder of the term, but you could go just until the next general election. Because you can always then fill a vacancy, consolidate on that general election to do that. Will cost you that, whatever, that 10 grand for that district.
it'll
but-
be a cheaper route.
But it's definitely the cheaper way to do it. So, and then it provided for on top of that, your ability to temporarily appoint while you're trying to hold the special election so that you could keep things going. So that's what it currently provides for. But it definitely would provide for potentially more elections because it's a very short time frame. So if you're wanting to go with a longer time frame, we could do that. So
Now, isn't that, what is it, 5 meetings you miss, you're pretty much vacant? How did,
with an unexcused. So you're able to go longer, and then I think there's a provision in there that hold on.
see, that's the problem with this last go and why I'm so scarred is they were missing for 5-6 months. And then when the
Yeah.
election time passed is when they said, I resign, and then they got a special selection.
So, yeah, they have to fail to attend 5 meetings unless prevented from attending by sickness without being excused therefrom by such body. So you have to get an excuse if you're going to miss more than 5 meetings, basically. And then then it's still allowed only a 90-day period, like cap on that, even if it's illness.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, 6 months.
Well, Vice Mayor, I know you're wanting to get a bite at this apple too, because it's interesting, you actually were petitioning for this seat that I'm talking about, and when it came election time, you received 73% of the vote?
Yeah.
So go ahead and educate us, sir.
Well, before I tell the history of that, I want to ask a question for clarification. Page 6, Julia, section 16, that's what's already in the charter, right? No. Where's the language that's already in there? Is it on page 7?
No. So I did not include the whole thing, I don't think, just for sake of space, but I have it if you need to know.
Well,
it.
it was so well written, I thought, well, that's got to be all of it in there, huh?
No. So, number 16. So the first paragraph in what you're seeing in your memo is that is, because there were no changes proposed to that. So that is what's already in it. The
Okay.
rest of it is all, you're right, it's all new, but it's all, yeah, I mean, I didn't reinvent the wheel. I went off a framework and then made it fit for what the charter review was recommending. So ours right now currently simply reads, if without permission from the council, any legislative officer of the city shall remove from the city or absent himself from more than 45 days consecutively or fail to, so it has all that language in there. And then all it has is an appointment. Let me find it. A vacancy is created due to successful recall, shall be filled by appointment of the council, such appointee to hold office until the next general municipal election, when successor shall be chosen. So that's from whatever reason except for recall, then it's filled by appointment of council, such appointment to hold office until the next general municipal election, when the successor shall be chosen by the electors for the unexpired term. So that is all it says, and then there's a provision in there that provides that if the council doesn't do that, then the mayor can do it. So it basically forces the issue of having to do it, or you're basically granting the power to the mayor to do it.
But it
No
gives us.
election,
but
no election at all.
Right, it gives us all of the different scenarios.
Right, and then it gives you a lot of different scenarios, which I then consolidated and tried to clean up a little bit, but still say the same thing in the new 16 on how the vacant, what your excuses can be for being out, because, like I said, no provision was provided on that. You guys are welcome to rewrite
It's not
that.
going to change it a whole lot.
Yeah.
So even with the stuff we're discussing here, it's almost like if we did nothing and we get the same thing.
Well, the big thing is you're gonna, you're gonna basically require a special election.
Right.
Yeah.
You're eliminating, you're taking it, you're going the whole other way, right? You're
Right.
going 180 from what it currently says on that, because you're not gonna, no longer will you do appointments, you will do elections. You will
Yes.
only do an appointment to fill for a very small time, or short time until that election's held.
Well, I tried to get appointed to this body, and after a 3-hour interview, I know even the newspaper said I should have got it, but I was being voted on by someone who was appointed. So, and, all things aside, what I noticed after I saw that was a pattern. There's a pattern here where we were appointing people for a long period of time off and on. And whether there was a conspiracy or whatever, it just turned out this way, where we see this pattern where people, as the mayor stated, were being selected, not elected. And, I used to come to these meetings when Pete was here, and he had a great following, and he got elected, and he passed away 2 months into office.
Second term, though.
It was, yeah,
months
but
after his second
that's
term.
going back more than 10 years, right? And he was well-loved, and so there was a vacancy right at the beginning of his term, which was very unique, right? And so they filled that with, I believe Monty filled that. And then he finished out the whole term.
Elected after that. He served the balance of till the next general election, and
Yes.
then he was
And
elected.
so he finished out his whole term appointed, and then he ran unopposed.
No, they did redistricting and he got another year for free.
Yeah, okay.
Added a year on the redistricting.
That's right, okay. So, and then, thank you for that input. But then after, a period of time, so basically, let me say it this way. Nobody was elected to this seat for 10 years. 10 years. And so when you get a chance to sit in the seat and you say, well, wait a minute, that's kind of a pattern of something we don't want to happen in the future. Can we fix that? That was the impetus of me pushing this forward to say, well, the people deserve better than that. And it wasn't about me. It was about having balance and making sure that the people were represented. And, we can go back and forth on all the politics and stuff, but that's a real thing. And that's why I pushed this forward and said, well, we need to have some balance. And great comments up here tonight from all my colleagues about the same thing. We want to be fair to all the people. And the thing about this is, I don't know that pushing this forward in its current form really gets us to that place. So I don't really want to spend the money. But I really wanted to get on the record why we're doing this. This isn't just, hey, let's go get this done. There's a reason, and it goes back to that constitutional approach, that balance of power, making sure that with the powers residing with the people, and we don't have people that are abusing that. That's what this is about. And so I want to make those comments, and we got to do what's right for the people. And this is one of those areas where I don't think we did for a long time.
Yeah.
And we want to fix it if we can.
I'm going to make a motion that we go with the time frame that Councilman Beltran stated, a year before the term is over, we can appoint. But if it's anything beyond that, then it needs to go to a special election. Elections, not selections. That is my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Is there any other comments?
Yeah, on piggybacking on what Mr. Vice Mayor said, 10 years, they were hooked, 12? They were hooking up their homeboys? Is that pretty much the way I see it?
Please refrain from having conversation with them.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I just want to clarify, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I
Neither
did not
did
know
I.
that. Wow. So
That's good
I moved,
This is why it's important.
I moved forward with this, so like I said, I second this.
Okay, we have a first and a second. We'll call for the vote if there's no other conversation.
Wow.
Passes 5-0. Okay, I think is there any other conversation? I know that there was some passion shared over the voter ID for local elections. I just don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze. It's a tough one for me. I really want it. It's like, we get to beat our chest and say we led the charge on voter ID here in the city of Porterville, and that matters to me. But we have the SAVE Act, and we have voter ID on the state ballot for a state constitution amendment. Do we need to spend the money? I don't think we do, just as being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. Is there any other comments on this one?
No, I think today the council listened to the public on this voter ID, and I think we're just going to postpone it for now. So
Okay.
with that,
All right, I think that was good.
I was curious, so we'll have the two, then? Those are the two charter items?
If you're, I would open, this is the moment, if you guys have anything that you're trying to do extra, this is the moment to try to get our charter team to be able to look at it or give direction. I'm not trying to close the meeting quite yet,
Just
but
briefly,
just putting it out there.
The city attorney talked about it briefly, but it was the the districts, getting rid of the districts. I'm in favor of working with any kind of amendments or anything we need to do to, if it doesn't need to go to the ballot, there's another way we can address that. But that one's really, I think. interesting.
Personally, I think leave it alone. Why spend the money? And it gives us the option to go at large one day, which is the right thing to do. You want true democracy, you want the power in the people's hands, let the people pick who they want. That's the right approach.
So
Now, that's
my recommendation, though, to do that would actually be to do a charter amendment, basically says it shall be set by ordinance. You can set whether it's, and that way it gives you the ability to go back.
my thought is, why spend the money? If the laws change, it's in our charter and we could go back to it.
Because that.
Well, it's already, there's a lot of complaints about this, the way, because look at what's going on, and Councilman Green, I'm gonna use you as an example here. I think you do a fine job.
That's where I was gonna go.
He ran unopposed. No one stepped up in his district. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, Councilman Green, but I think healthy competition is important. When we have districts, it narrows how many people can run in that district, where when it's at large, anyone can apply to run, and the top 5 are the winners. That's true democracy. So I wanna keep it. I'm just, if you're making a motion, go ahead, sir.
Not necessarily a motion, but just as a discussion. I don't know if that's something that the charter committee could work on, since we're going to, they could work on that. I guess maybe just some direction
Yeah,
for them to look at that,
You're more than welcome to make that motion, sir.
with the support of council.
Yeah,
That's just my thoughts, that's all.
yeah. Is there any other discussion?
I have a couple of things. One, I really like how we opened the meeting. We started with the premise, right? This is our Constitution. We need to approach this differently. I don't want to send this back to the committee to do a whole bunch of work and then find out we're not going to use any of it. So I think we should go back, I'd make a direction here to go back and say, let's review how we approach this and open this thing up to be more like a constitution so that we can get more change out of it, which is the beginning conversation that we had. I just don't like the idea that it could take 40 bites at the apple. That's,
It costs over $1 million.
yeah,
to do
so
it.
if I were to, let me say this, if I were to send it back or ask you guys to vote on sending it back to the charter, I'd want to ask how we could do that without having to do 41 things. And then maybe change the approach. That would just be my direction. I want to make a motion. And this might seem a little strange after all the discussion that we've had tonight, but maybe it's germane. If I said I want to make a motion to say this specifically, remove all language in the charter pertaining to outdated city council pay and procurement thresholds from 1971. One yes or no question to send to the voters that would give us a chance to open up the hood and change all the things in there that pertain to that group.
So your procurement threshold, you may have already taken care of by virtue of what you did on the section 61. Oh, yeah, but you pay, on the other hand, though, yeah, you could do that, and that would then eliminate it's really just that one reference, I think, in the section concerning.
So this is kind of my end run to say, if we go in this direction, we can make multiple changes with one change sent to the voters.
The procurement law is only in section 61 of the charter? Interesting.
Section 61 covered a bunch of things, which made it kind of difficult to figure out how to change just one thing, especially when there's things in there that we want to potentially address.
So
but
really, we're, with the amendment I made tonight, we're
you were
addressing a bunch
You
of.
were already removing the procurement threshold by virtue of that.
Okay, so that's one out of three
But
down.
we might be able to use your example on something else, you know what I mean, and try to consolidate. That's what I was thinking too, is I can try to take a look at it and see if there's
That's
a way
an interesting angle, Vice Mayor.
to
Really great
to
thinking.
streamline. Is there a way that you can do one amendment to streamline certain things out of this?
That's my motion, and if we could do something before the deadline in a simple way, that we spend $30,000 to get 5 changes, that would be a way to go. Because you guys have to remember that the way it works is that these thresholds they're just so out of date, and if you try to update them, they're just out of date as soon as you update them. So we want to make it more like a constitution, so that the ordinance and the council can set those thresholds over time, and we don't have to go back to the voters every time. Now, we want to make sure that we go to the voters, but we also want to make sure that our charter is based on a constitutional approach, because the way that they wrote it is a little bit too fine, and it gets us into some situations.
Right, and so silence will, many times when you have silence in your charter, without adopting any ordinance, you will be adopting whatever the general law city's
Right.
statute is. So for example, if you were to eliminate completely the council member pay item from the charter, then what would apply, because you have another section, and unless you're gonna change that one, it's gonna still apply, which is anything that you don't have either a charter amendment or a regulation on means that you're gonna follow the general law.
Right.
So the general law actually has provisions for compensation for your council members and sets it by population thresholds. I don't remember what they all are off the top of
It
my
makes
head.
our charter more healthy.
Right. But it basically, so it's not basically saying, I mean, obviously you could set your own, because you're a charter city, you have the ability to do that, so you have the ability. But if you opt not to, then general law will apply. And that's basically how it kind of works
That's how it works.
on anything.
This is an interesting angle, because exactly what Councilman Beltran was just talking about, which I don't agree with, but I'm just stating that with this angle, you could look at stuff like that and add it into, you could make a charter amendment that says, we're gonna follow all state laws that the charter is going against. And obviously, we'd word it prettier than
Well,
that.
and in some respects, that's what we have. I mean, we back, but it's what state law was back in 1961 or 1971, depending on the amendment. So it was looking at a snapshot in time of what the state law said, and then we set it. But then state law changed, and you're now stuck with what you have in your charter, because the charter takes precedence over that.
Okay, some concerns, just thinking out loud here with all of you. With you adding, we have a motion on the table. Time frame. How soon do we need to have this prepared to go out on the ballot? How soon do we need to start educating the people on what the council is pushing forward as far as charter amendments?
Soon.
Well, I knew that answer. So
Maybe a month and a half. We
Yeah,
really
so
need to get.
We have to do we need
July,
a self-imposed deadline here. If we can't get it done in 2 weeks, we need to.
So here's what I'm getting at is I believe your motion was wanting to push it to the Charter Review Committee, but I don't think we have the time for that. And so if you're wanting to push this amendment, which I support, this charter amendment, I do support it. I think it's a clever way to remove some language.
Can I amend the motion and say, have staff work with legal counsel to refine the language so that we can see if we can add that on?
And
That
then-
way we can fast track it.
Like this, and this is something we could get back maybe next month that we could get a final vote on.
And then I'd like a final vote, because we want to know how much money we're going to spend.
I can commit to doing as much as I can in the next 7 days. That's about as far as I can go. But I can try to leave it in a place that it can go for the transition. It's fine.
Understand, we're giving direction here, and understand the situation, Julia. So, okay, you're okay with that amendment?
Yes.
To your motion? I will second your motion, Vice Mayor. Is there any other discussion on this?
No, I think I'm good. That sounds really good to me. Ed.
Okay,
I like it.
Councilman Rivas?
Yeah, no, the only thing is, let's just tread lightly, and let's just dot our i's and cross our t's, and let's not, poke a sleeping bear with this. That's all I'm saying. Just take it slow and review it and assess it, and let's do it the right way, where there's transparency, and we can look at it in a more prospective way, where people won't start throwing daggers at us every single time they come up here, so.
Councilman Rivas,
All right.
they're going to throw daggers. But I understand what you're saying. We are going to get a final vote on this. We're giving direction. They'll bring back new language, what it's going to look like before we send it to the ballot and start putting it out to the people. So we'll get one more bite at the apple before we finalize.
They're conferring over there.
Anything,
Okay.
Mr. Beltran?
anything to add, folks?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a first and a second. We'll call for the vote. Oh, they want a clean house. Passes 5-0. City manager
Do you want to say it or you want me to say it?
or city attorney.
We just wanted to mention this while we have you for the charter specifically. The airport committee has also made a request for a charter amendment. Guess you'll never guess what it's about. Our fund lease provision that requires us to have 90-day cancellation notices. So they were hoping for a carve-out if we can't, because they're well aware that we've tried to change that. It's another one of those areas where I don't think it's a necessary law, because eminent domain law would help, that already exists, right?
Right.
If we need it, we're able to take it in a relatively short period of time, as long as we follow judicial procedure. But for whatever reason, we've never been able to get the voters to allow us to change that provision and remove the 90 days. So they are asking for a carve-out for the airport property specifically, which is of course not usually the things I'd recommend, but I get where they're coming from, and I didn't want to, I'd be remiss not to mention it.
Thank you for bringing that up. I studied this last year with you guys. I read so much on this. So, wait, let me ask this question. We just made a really nice motion in a second and passed it. If the language said, if we added a couple of words and it said outdated leases, because maybe we could get at that thing too.
Well,
Okay.
before you do that, I just want to state, the 90 days is a faster process than eminent domain.
That is correct. I think
So-
theoretically it gives you, it's a
So
little
if
bit.
you have foul play out at the airport, this is a tool for the city council and city staff to address that foul play.
And I don't
Now,
think it's never been used to my knowledge either.
Yeah,
So
and I'm all
it's-
for our fellow patrons out at the airport, but that was put there for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely viewed, I mean, it's a benefit for the city. Now, it has consequences, because it makes some not even want to enter into lease agreements with us. It provides a disincentive, because people are very worried about the fact that we could, just simply cancel it within 90 days. Now, it's really not that simple, because we'd also have to pay for the improvements. So that's why it doesn't get used, because we would be basically having to do that.
For the audience to understand this better, there's a provision in the charter that's specific to this, and it's referenced in the lease. Even though we can update the lease, it still points to that provision, which has this limitation, and it seems threatening, even though it really isn't, and you still have to follow the law. That's one, it's like these other ones that are just a little bit too specific. That's why I was suggesting that maybe we could add in this direction something that might allow us to update that. And make it a little bit more pliable, so that it doesn't seem so threatening the way that it's written.
More at ease.
We'll just highlight on the date when the last time we ever did it.
Yeah.
Never do it.
Right.
Never.
We've tried all those angles. It's still, for whatever reason, it's just always been a sticking point, so. But I agree. I mean, we can try, and I think we even did that. We tried to make it clear, look, we aren't going to, our inclination's not to take property unless we need it for a public purpose anyways. But, and we can still have for cause. For cause, terminations are always something that we're able to exist with or without that language. That language is just it provides an expedited process where it's now
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about doing all the things you've got to do with eminent domain.
Right.
Get an order of possession, that kind of thing, so.
Has there been any 90-day notice exercised in the last number of
I
years?
have never done one in my career being here.
I don't think it's ever been done.
Why are we even?
Okay. Is there a motion?
No, I think it was just comment,
Just
because the airport committee was saying, and I would saying back that maybe you could combine that with the last vote that we just said in the language for that last vote, because you're saying that remove the language pertaining to outdated city council procurement
To give that
thresholds.
direction, Vice Mayor, you're going to have to make a motion, because that would be
Okay,
changing
so-
what we.
So I was interpreting, maybe I'm wrong, I was kind of interpreting your motion to include, just sort of going through it and seeing where we can just provide potential flexibility, if we can streamline it like how many votes would it take, how many amendments would it take to streamline your charter completely? Or is that over, am I
I
going
just-
over
Oh,
what
no,
you
I think
wanted?
that's okay, and I'm okay with that, but our time frame is not very long, so.
Yeah, and Councilman Rivas already made a great point of, let's be careful. If you go too far, you're gonna get daggers thrown at you. And he's not wrong. So I'm putting that in there as well.
I'd say we want to address it if we can in the last vote, and if we can't, we may have to address it at a later time. That would be my direction, or,
We could just address thresholds and deadlines and timeframes,
I'd like to look at it, yeah.
Okay,
which I think falls under what you already voted on, so.
all right. With that, is there no other discussion? Okay. City Manager, do you have any comments?
Sounds like we got really good direction. I appreciate the council being clear on that. So much that my understanding is staff is going to work on the final touches and will bring this back to council, and that there isn't a need to go back to the Charter Review Committee?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We got to get this done.
so, let's thank them.
Yes, to the Charter Review Committee, thank you for all your hard work and your dedication. And to your members that are not here tonight, thank you for coming across. Greg Shelton, you sat as chair. Appreciate all the hard work you did. Do you have any comments on behalf of the body?
Greg Shelton, 88 North Willowford Drive. I just need a little bit of clarification. We didn't finish the issue of appointment of a alternate member. I don't know if we're going to do that tonight. It's on the agenda. I can discuss some of the things that you said. I don't know if you want to hear them or not, but ultimately, if the Charter Review Committee has to sell it, some of these things are going to be difficult, something like Mr. Rivas said. The problem with the definition of outdated is, I don't know, I have a 1971 Model 70 Winchester that's probably as lethal as any gun out there, so is it outdated? Regardless of how old it is. And I think we're going to have a problem using the term outdated because it's very subjective. Second thing is, I don't want the baby getting thrown out with the bathwater. There's a lot of good things here, but if we tie them to other things, it's going to kill the other thing.
Right.
You know, and so if we tie, as an example, what got me is we tied removing the threshold out of the issue. What happens then is if I'm the opposition, then my soundbite is the city council is trying to open up all where they have no oversight over their spending practices, and that's not what's going on here, but it gives a powerful tool to the opposition.
Yep.
So you might want to bifurcate them, you know, just to make sure that one passes. Sure, you're going to spend some more money, I get it, but I would like to, I'd like to compliment you, all of you, on certain things. The voter ID, I know it was near and dear to your heart, Mayor, but you're absolutely right, Mr. McCurvey. It's not 40,000 from what I'm reading. It's 140,000 because you have to have a special election. So that's just something that's, you know, it's unfeasible right now. So that one, I absolutely agree with. Some of the other issues, I agreed with pretty much everything that you did. If it hasn't got a good chance of passing, the only thing worse than spending $40 or $80 or $120,000 is to spend that much and the measure not pass. And now you just put good money after bad. So maybe if you'd be okay, maybe I could work with staff a little bit on some of these and maybe tweak it a little bit.
That's a good idea.
Just to put some, be the devil's advocate in this. For the issue of election, not selection, which I'm very powerful about because it's happened to me and to Mr. McCurvey, and he was absolutely right in that there was 3 liberals in a row that used this, whereas the conservatives weren't as apt to use it. For the issue about us not being able to fire department heads, I think that was actually a good move on your part too, because in the time since all this has come about, I have noticed a profound change in staff. You know, they are taking your advice, Mayor. They are working hard, and they are getting some production. And I feel like it's because we got a lot of the department heads that on the mass exodus decided to leave us. But I'm telling you, man, it's been a big difference in here. So some of these things don't necessarily need to be addressed. Not at 30 or 40. I'm paying more than $40,000 a piece on these measures. So I think that a lot of this stuff, your direction was really well. And I want to also compliment AJ. I want to Raymond and Stan. AJ, I like the way you guys watch the money. I like the way that you said it how it was, Raymond. you know, that we have an effect now just from the fallout of all of the recent discussions. So that being said, if I'm going to have to be tasked with selling this to the people, give me a chance to sell it, because I've tried both raising, that was my item in the last charter, and it failed epically. And the other one had to do with the raising the threshold. And I think I voted against that the last time we did it, because I didn't feel like we got a good enough explanation on what was going to happen. So again, let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. And I would actually like for one more thing for you guys to do is maybe tonight give me some direction on how I can fill out my committee.
Oh, that vacant position?
I'm sorry?
That vacant?
Well,
On the vacancy.
And in all fairness, let me counter back to city staff. Is what former Councilman Greg Shelton stated necessary as far as we need the Charter Review Committee to finish what we're doing? Or are we trying to get this done in the next month?
Yeah, I think staff can complete what the direction has been given tonight, for sure, and
And,
bring it
and
back to council.
so, and with that, where you will have another bite at the apple is when it does go on the agenda, you're more than welcome to call me, and we can have that discussion. I would love your input. I'd love all of your input. I think it's important. And so, from there, we can, when you look at that language, you can help. And you're Councilman, or former Councilman Shelton, you're no rookie at lobbying and calling individuals and getting your
No, I'm
part
going to call
across.
every one of you.
Yeah, that's what I
Not at
figured.
the same time, though.
Yeah, of course. So,
And Mayor, if I might, listen, I like what you've done. I have no problem with any of it. I'm trying to get us past the finish line. And I'm not insulted or hurt or anything to each other. I appreciate everything you've done for me and my committee, and it's just less work for me. But I do want to, I agree with your vision, not all of it, but most of it, and I would like to get it past the finish line. I don't want it to fail because we made a misstep.
I think the major controversial one was the last motion as far as the thresholds and council pay. And you make a good, really great point in your argument with the Winchester, the 1971 Winchester. Still very lethal, and it's important, right?
Absolutely.
And not only that, but we don't want the baby out with the bathwater. And so when that is brought back, we will have an opportunity to look at it. And like I said, you're very experienced in lobbying, and you're
I've
going to make
lost
your
a
phone
lot.
calls.
So I think that I can help clarify this too. So once the Charter Review Committee is just formulating and getting the ballot, getting it ready to go and in a resolution to be, so once you get through that process, it will no longer be a city, like, officially sanctioned thing. If you're wanting to advocate for the passage, that now has to be not an official city action, because otherwise we get ourselves in trouble with election laws. So you have, the good news is you have full authority. You or any grouping of you independently so you have full authority over who, if you want to form a grassroots effort group to do that, it can consist of some or all or none of the Charter Review Committee members, and each has that, everybody has this ability to do that, right? So
My understanding, Madam Attorney, is that the Charter Review Committee was supposed to do public outreach, or someone's going to do public outreach around this. I don't care who it is. And if that's what we're not doing anymore, then that's
So that's
fine.
just information sharing, which we can do like through the
Yeah, the city-
administration's office.
The
Yeah.
city will do that, but we definitely want your support, and being that you help and were instrumental in bringing this forward. But what is your ask that we give some kind of special purpose funds for the charter committee to advertise the?
I think in this town, unless you're going to get somebody, which you're really good at, social media, basically what happened is you had the committee out at like the Spring Fest at a table for no other reason than to give information to people, because that's what happens, is that nobody really looks, you know what I mean? And if you don't explain to them within the realm of legal, then all I'm gonna hear is they want to raise their pay. That's all I'm gonna hear. If I don't have somebody explaining, well, that's not exactly what's going on here, then that's all I'm gonna hear. It's a world of sound bites. And I worry that that's going to be detrimental. I feel like it should have both, again, within the realm. Now, if we don't want to do that.
Well, you're giving all the sound bites.
Well, they were going to figure them out anyway.
Oh, yeah. So what's going to happen is the staff is going to bring it back to the council. There'll be an opportunity for all of us to review what is on the agenda, and then we could give our input. I don't see doing like a specialty purpose fund for the charter committee to advertise. I think that's something we'll do in-house with city staff. This is my opinion. My colleagues, you're more than welcome to voice yours as well. I don't want to dictate here. Do any of you have any input on this? Do you want the charter to be doing that? What's your guys' input?
Well, I wouldn't mind, I mean, they started, I'm the kind of person that if you start it, then you finish it. And that's just the way I see it. But, I mean, I think we already,
Well, that's exactly what we're doing.
no, I
Councilman.
understand that. I mean, if they can work together, I mean, he's very knowledgeable and stuff, so, but that's just my opinion, so.
Yeah, and so we started it. We had them go after the ones that we
understand.
wanted. We narrowed it down to 3 tonight. And now it's the ball's in our court, and we're pushing to the staff to fine tune it.
I get it.
Julia has kind of made a great point of she's 7 days in, so our new attorney will be looking at this, working with city staff to bring forward to us. Then we will look at the language,
Of
and
course.
we don't have to adopt that language. We get to review it and make a ethical decision on how we want to go forward with it.
Mr. Mayor, listen, I don't have a dog in this fight one way or the other. So that brings up a good point. So am I to understand that really, because of the crunch time, do we really need to do any more? Do we even have a meeting? Can the attorney finish up the polishing on the 2 that you are going to go forward with? And if so, are we going to put this charter review committee in suspense, which again is fine with me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's probably the right direction. Now, I assumed that that's what was going to happen.
Okay, then,
And
being stated, that'd be
do we
great.
need to give direction on that? I'm looking for legal or city side, city
I think
manager.
putting it in, like suspending it for now is probably the right way, and that way if it needs to be resurrected before the
next
election,
term
you
or
have the ability, or you
If there's
could,
an emergent, if there's
Yeah.
a special election, we could actually conceivably put it on that special election if something, and that brought me, and I don't want to belabor it, but, you know, we can always call a special election and I was going to talk about this earlier, if we had like a legal challenge to one of the things we passed, there's nothing that stops us later from having a special election and putting one of those items on there. It'll be expensive, but again,
Right.
I think it's not a bad idea, at least so.
certain charter things have to be done. I'll have to go back and look at the rules, but a lot of it are confined to general elections, just as a heads up. It's not all, but some, a lot of them are. The big ones, the
stand corrected.
funding-related ones.
Former Councilman Shelton, I personally think that after the next election cycle and whoever wins the seats, I think there should be another charter team put together or committee looking at our charter and ways to give it teeth that it does need. But I think the new body should make that
I
decision.
absolutely agree.
I don't think that we should have this body forever. I think it should go to an end, and then the next council that's in power picks that next leadership.
Whatever you want to do, Mayor, I'm absolutely fine. If you would like to disband it, that, I'm sure everybody would be relieved and so, or if you want to suspend it, I don't care, one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm at this point, I think we have got all we needed out of you, and we greatly appreciate all the hard work. And to your colleagues, thank you for the dedication to the city of Porterville.
So you're done, Greg, we're throwing you under the bus, buddy.
Yes,
No, I
yes.
don't really feel that way at
And
all.
if the
I really
bas-
don't. I'm kind of relieved because it got kind of jumbled here. Half of it the attorney's going to do, the other half we're going to do. I would, you know.
Well, we took out a lot of the language altogether.
No, I don't-
We narrowed it down to very simple.
It'll make it a lot easier to get it done.
Yes,
So
yes.
that, and again, I have no heartburn about it at all.
Yeah.
But I would like clear direction, though. If we're going to be disbanded, just tell them we're going to be, so we can know.
You're going to be disbanded.
There you go, then give me,
Future agenda item, just for clarification, that's not on for tonight.
okay, that's fine.
Thank
All
you,
right,
sir.
guys.
Okay. Is there any other comments, huh? Yes, sir.
I think that sounds like a good episode for the new podcast we'll be having.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Hey, I just, before you gavelled, I'd just like to say thanks to everybody. It was a great meeting tonight, a lot of give and take. Thank you for your leadership in the team, all of you, and all the contributions that you guys made. There's a big sacrifice when you put that much time in, and we don't want you to think that we're just dissolving the committee. This is the natural end to it, and we are really thankful for all the time that you guys have put in. Thank you very much.
A lot of hard work. Thank you, guys. Any other comments?
No, My sentiments exactly, Ed.
You nailed it.
I
Okay.
I echo those sentiments. Thank you.